All right. Good morning. I am Chuck Bargeron with the University of Georgia Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. I'm one of the creators and I guess the manager of the EDDMapS project and all of its sub projects. And Laura Van Riper asked me to come on and set up this webinar and go over how the advanced query tool works. And so I have got some canned examples that I'm going to show you that were all tested and double tested and all worked as of an hour ago. So hopefully we'll all work now. And then I will open it up to any questions, primarily focused on the advanced query tool. But if there's other questions related to EDDMapS in general, then I'll be glad to field those as well. So for those not familiar with the advanced query tool, it is a feature that's in EDDMapS to basically pick up any of the questions you would like to ask the database that are not, just general distribution maps. And so to access that page, either from EDDMapS Midwest or the EDDMapS homepage, you click on the Tools and Training tab up here at the top, and then Advanced Query Tool is the next to the last option under Database Tools. And so if you click on that, then you get a page that looks like this with a bunch of blank fields. And what you can do on this page is any combination of these fields. So, just for a quick example, I know that Monica Chandler with Minnesota Department of Ag has a fair number of reports in EDDMapS. So I can go on and say, okay, I want to look at all of Monica's records. And I do a search, and there we go. We get the number of records. There's 342. 341 of those have a lat long to go along with it. And those records total 948 acres. You can zoom in just like you would on any other EDDMapS map and see where those records are. You can click on them to get more information, and then click on them again, and it takes you to the actual record. The download options, the CSV, the KML, the GPX, and the shapefile options are all here. If you have not used those recently, when you click on that record now, it's going to pop up and say you will receive an email with instructions to download the requested content. And every 15 minutes, the server runs and processes those requests, and you will get an email that looks like this, that says, we've prepared the data download, and here's the link to download it, and that link will be active for another 30 days. And in that process, if you had trouble with that process in the past, that process has been changed the way it runs, and now it runs. And if it doesn't run, we get an error message letting us know that it didn't run for some reason. But it runs every 15 minutes. So within about 15 minutes of you making the request, then you should get the email. To back up one. If I said, okay, well, I want to look at everything that Monica did, but I also want to look at everything that Laura has reported, then I can get that results. Laura doesn't have very many reports, but we can see it added a few to what we had before. And then again, all of those same options are available. And you can keep adding people if there's a group of folks that you're looking for, when that all collected data on a group. This is just verified data. Anything that has not been verified, checked off through the system, will not show up here. Another query of interest is, let's say, okay, I want to look at everything entered since January, everything that was entered in the EDDMapS since January 1st for Minnesota. So you choose January 1st up here, you choose Minnesota, you run the query, it returns the 3,000 results and maps them as well. One interesting thing you can see, so there was like 3,300 reports entered. You can come over here and do when the observation date was, just to kind of see, okay, what was actually observed. And it's interesting that it's a lower number because there's been data that's been entered since January of this year that was actually observed prior to January. So you get a smaller number when you come in and look at the number of records observed versus the number of records entered. Another, query of interest, let's say, okay, I want to look at Oriental bittersweet. This species list, it includes everything in EDDMapS, and you have to you start typing the name, and it will do the it'll do the search. You can search by scientific name or by common name, and it will populate that field. After you start typing 3 characters, then it'll start looking for what you want. But if you keep on typing more, then you'll be more likely to get to your answer quicker. And so, okay, I click on that, and that gives me, okay, well, here's all of the Oriental bittersweets records that are in Minnesota. And as you can see, they're kind of clustered, obviously, along a couple of areas. One thing that this really can be useful for is finding, a quick way without, especially if you're just looking within your state, where some of the hotspot populations are without having to dig through the data for the surrounding states. That also could be limited by county. I think it's, so if you put in Ramsey County, then you're going to come in and you're going to get even a smaller set of the data just that are located within that county. If you go back, sometimes it's going to save your results here. So like state was saved on that, but let's say, I want to, while I'm here, instead of going and digging through to find the full distribution map, okay, I want to look at Oriental bittersweet distribution nationwide. So you can go back, make sure state is not chosen here, and get all 17,000 results for Oriental bittersweet, across the whole U.S. And so, same map that you would get on the distribution page, but if you're here and you're looking for some data, then another way to pull it out. A question we get asked a lot, let's say you do some kind of campaign and you're pushing the public, or you've got a group that's going out and looking for things over a period of time. So let's say, you ran this campaign in April of this year, and where you were really pushing people to report things. And so you want to see how many records were reported in April of this year in Minnesota. And so, very quickly you can see 163 records, and you can get, kind of distribution of where those are. We get asked questions a lot related to numbers, and, what you quickly see here is the map, but as valuable as the map is this first line up here, which is the number of records that were actually submitted in that time period. So I was just going to go through a few more examples of different ways you can look at things. One is, okay, well, I want to look at Minnesota, and I want to look at everything in Ramsey County. And so, okay, well, there's 3,900 records that show up in Ramsey County. I'm around Minneapolis, and so here, as you zoom in, can see where all of those records are found. But now let's say, okay, well, what I'm really interested in is the insect reports in Ramsey County. So, okay, I'm going to go back, add insects to the query, and then you come back and just get the insect records that show up in there. And while I was talking, then the email came in for my request for all of Monica's records. So about a little less than about 10 minutes since we made the request, and now that email's come in. So while we're here and we're looking, okay, well, let's say we want to look at not insects, but I want to see what wildlife reports have come up in the county, and so you do that, and then okay, here are your 16 wildlife reports. What some goldfish reports, and then probably some zebra mussel as well. So those are reports. But okay, well, there was a fish report in there, as well as the zebra mussel. So maybe I should just go back and look just at mussels. So I go back to category, which is a little narrower than the division is here. And I can choose snail, slug, and mussels, and then submit. So, okay, well, there were 16 reports total for wildlife in Ramsey County, but 10 of those were actually mussels. And because I'm always interested, in some of the work we've done in the Everglades, and okay, well, how many snake reports? How many reptile or amphibian reports have we got in Minnesota? And so let's just go in and put in reptiles. Oh, and here we go. So there hasn't been any reptiles that have been returned in Minnesota. So you won't always. There will be scenarios where you won't. You actually won't get any results. And I'm not going to do it as an example, but well, I guess I can. Let me just go back and think if I just do Minnesota. So if you just do Minnesota, you're going to get a warning that the query is going to return over 200,000 records. And I think what we've done right now is I think you get an error message when you do this. And it says that to download data sets over 200,000 records, then contact Rebecca Wallace. And so we put that in there because it'll eventually map these in ideal situations. All those records will ultimately come up. But the download we found was just too taxing on the server. If somebody comes in here and refreshes that download link and clicks on it multiple times, then it's going to put so much load on the server, and there's very few instances where you would really need that many records. And if you do, then it's something we can quickly pull out for you. And I'm going to back up and get out of that. But other things that I was thinking, questions that may come up. Okay, well, I want to know what's been reported in Wisconsin since January 1st. I know there's been some reports in Wisconsin. Let's see, how many of those are getting close to or along the line, and you can very quickly see that information about surrounding states right now, because of the fact that country, state, and county and township are all tied to each other. If you choose Wisconsin here, then this county list is the counties in Wisconsin. If you choose Minnesota here, then this county list becomes the counties in Minnesota. Then that limits us to only be able to do one state or one county with the way it's currently set up. Um, One thing that not something I had looked at before, but as I was preparing this, there's an option here for habitat, and so let's look at everything that was listed with the roadside habitat, and hey, you're going to get 84,000 records that are um, roadside records, and so there is some ways to pull out specific information like that from the database and really dive deeper into it. And I think probably because that other query was running, it's going to take a few minutes for this one to pull the data up. But there it goes; it's starting to come in now. Um, so while this is loading, so going back to the previous page on different ways that you can look at things, different ways you can query things. This feature is something that's been in EDDMapS for a long time. You do have the potential to ask crazy questions of it and really slow things down. So it's one of those things that it's there and we publicize it, kind of on an as needed basis, just because, it's not a functionality that every user needs, but when you're really trying to dig deep into the data and figure out more than just where a species is, then it's a very useful tool. So I guess, do y'all have any questions? I can keep going on this all day long, but if there are specific questions or scenarios that y'all would like me to talk about, or questions that it may should be able to answer but it can't currently answer, um, then speak up or type into the question box. Let me see how I can.
I have a question. So for the different ways you can download the data, can you talk about the different formats a little bit, and the pros and cons, and what kind of data you'll be getting if you download it as a CSV? You're going to get 50 columns worth of data, things like that.
Right. Yeah. So the and I'll answer the other question that came in kind of at the same time. So yes, let me do a query and go back to that page. There's 4 different formats that we made the data available in. With the first one being CSV. CSV is comma separated values. That data is just it's a text file that that Excel is friendly to open in Excel. You are going to get a lot of fields. It was originally tied to the here's an example of what it looks like. This data was originally tied to the North American Invasive Species Management Association standards. I think we have updated this where now it's more of just kind of a dump of the fields in the database. But as you can see, there are a lot of fields. You're going to get a lot of information, and there's going to be a lot of fields that are here that you may not have any interest in. And so, the quick option is to just go in and, okay, I'm not interested in this section township range quad because there's no data in there for any of the records I downloaded. So I'm just going to quickly delete those fields. From time to time we get requests to add more fields, and that's something that we can we'll be glad to address, on a kind of an as needed basis. Um, one, one user recently, for some reason, infested area and the units were in gross area and the units were not separated on this download. Um, and so obviously that to do any calculations, you need those separated. So there's little things that fall through the cracks sometime. And so that was pointed out to us, and we updated it and made that um, available. The shapefile in most cases would be the other format you would primarily use. Um, I think because of the way we are writing shapefiles, that you end up getting two layers. And because I'm on a Mac, I don't have EDDMap on here, but you end up getting two layers, one that is a point layer and one that is a polygon layer. And my understanding is that you can combine those two in ArcGIS, but the way we have to write them, you can't get both of them at the same time in one file.
And
KML,
Chuck,
yes.
yeah, just before you move off shapefiles, just a reminder to DNR staff that we do have shapefiles for the EDDMapS data on our internal quick themes layers. So if you want to look at invasive species data in ArcGIS, you don't have to go through the process of downloading it off EDDMapS Midwest. You can just open up ArcMap, go to quick themes, search for invasives, and there's several. There's an aquatic invasives layer and a terrestrial invasives layer, and you can open those up, and it's got the points and polygons on there.
Right. And that's updated. Is it nightly or is it weekly?
I think every 4 days.
Okay. And so yeah, so I would, you're going to get a better shapefile probably through that interface through your ArcMap than you would through this. Um, it's hard to write shapefiles on the server the way we're doing it, and so there's some limitations there. KML is the Google Earth format. So if you're using the Google Earth software and you want to be able to map things on it, then that is the file format for it. I think there are some limitations to the amount of data that comes along with it, just because of the nature of that format. I think that it's some basic information and then a link to the record. GPX is kind of a holdover. It is the Garmin format. And that was added at some point as an option because people wanted to be able to pull the data down and load it onto their Garmins, and then take that out in the field. So that's the reasoning for that that format to be there. The Dave Schuler asked a question: can anybody who uses EDDMapS use these tools, or do you have to have specific rights? Anybody who's using EDDMapS can use these tools. You have to be logged in to be able to request the download. So that way, mainly what we've run into is a bot that is indexing the site would hit those links and then go through every number, and slow down the site for everybody else. And so that's why those are limited to you having to be logged in to do those requests. But the general query that's available to anybody is only publicly available data that you get returned in these queries. We've got some requests for a more advanced user to be able to get different types of data, and that's something we're looking into in the future, where there would be different levels of access based on a user level of some sort, and where you may could pull data that you normally wouldn't be able to pull, but if you have the right permissions, then you would be able to. Other questions? Ways you would like to see this? Ways it works?
Um, if we aren't getting other questions, maybe you could go back to that tools and training material page and just highlight if there's other tools on there that people might find handy.
Yes, and we are in the process of revising this part of the page. There's a couple of there's some outdated stuff on here that needs to be updated. This handbook right here, which was a document we put together, I think almost 10 years ago. There's some really good information in it. There, when you really, especially, when you get into, digital cameras part and how to take pictures and some just general information on going out in the field, what you should carry, and even some basics on developing a invasive species program. We are going to be updating this in the next few months, and printing some more copies of it. So there will be a new version of this that will be done. I guess it was done in 2011. So look for that. We we put together a couple of quick flyers on how to use the smartphone apps. We're going to continue to update those as we update the apps. We've got some data dictionary as well as bulk data information here, and a dictionary for downloaded data, what the different fields mean, what kind of data that's stored in them. We are putting together a series of one-page question and answer sheets that will be available on this page. They are stuff like, how do I change my password? How do I use the alert system? How to report negative data is going to be one that's going to be available. So look over the next couple of weeks, and then moving on, how you'll see this page get updated some more. There are also, on the main EDDMapS Midwest page, there are a handful of these training PowerPoints that were put together, that are that you can go through, and step by step, and see information on how to do things. These will be added to that, to the tools and training page. Some other things that can be useful is this find a location tool. This is something I don't understand why it's not more built into Google Maps. But it shows you exactly where your mouse is. You can zoom in, and you can change the satellite view, and click, and it will save the latitude and longitude of where you click. So if you need a latitude and longitude for something, this is a tool that is there for that. We've also got tools to convert latitude and longitude from different formats, whether it's degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal degrees, or UTMs. So I think what else is, statistics page just kind of gives you some general overview of what data is in all of EDDMapS. And this was a request that somebody asked. They wanted to be able to pull things out by congressional districts. So I guess if you needed to report everything that had been reported in Minnesota's first district, and these are exotic and listed as a problem somewhere in the United States, but it's a quick way. You can narrow this down to just plants, or you can. So here's the 294 plants that have been reported in Minnesota's first congressional district. And they're ranked by number of records. So If you're asked for what the problems are in a congressional district, then we added this quick way to be able to find that, and you just click on the map and go from there. So I think those are probably the most useful tools on here. Other questions or comments?
Hi, I work in Northeast Minnesota where we have some really large counties. I'm wondering if there is a way, and maybe this is more of an internal DNR question, to add sub-counties, or I noticed under the township query that there are no townships listed for a couple of the counties I work in. So I'm curious about adding those types of features.
Yeah, probably and I honestly cannot tell you if we have any of the Minnesota townships in, and it may be that we don't. I know we added, there were some areas in some of the New England states where they really wanted townships added, and I think that's where we primarily added those in. But if there's interest in adding townships in for the whole state, then that's something we can do, and then you would be able to query it on this page as well. So I guess I would say think about the best way how you would want to, whether it's township or what other way you would like to pull information out, and then let me and Laura know, and we can add that as a feature in the next year anyway.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, and I think, and I did not test this because I'd forgotten that we had done it this way. But we do have the option here where you can query and just show things on, that's what these two layers, just show records that are on Minnesota DNR state lands or Minnesota DNR state waters. And if I'm remembering correctly, that was, so if it didn't fall, when you ran this query, if it didn't fall on that state land, then the record would not, it's limiting to that. I don't think we added a way where you could search for a specific state land or a specific water body as part of this. But that may be something that would be useful to look into in the future as well. And please, if you run into problems, something doesn't work, then please let us know, and we can make sure that, whether it's a query on this page or a link that's not working somewhere, if we can't fix it unless we know about it. And you can, in these other field, any of these other fields beyond the state, county, country, township, add multiple things. So if you were looking at, the, if I spelled that right, the bush honeysuckles, and you wanted to look at everything. you know, the spa, this listed just as the spa, and you also wanted to look at amber honeysuckle, and you could go on and add the other ones to that as well, and just do a search for all of those. Then you can keep adding species here to fill in that. You know, to search, and it's a good way to search for multiple species at the same time and get a map of those species. There are also synonyms in here as well. I don't know if you noticed that as I started typing that in, but as I was typing it, there were synonyms that were showing up. If I can find you an example, so like this is a synonym for this, and so you'll get some of those synonyms as you look for things through this as well. And that's a fairly new feature that was added. Anything else? And this was recorded, so we will make it available on the tools and training page and on the Bugwood YouTube channel as soon as I can get it converted and uploaded it, so you can refer back to it if you have any questions in the future.
Great, thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks all y'all for joining us, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.